Actually, afternoon. This is a, depending on where you are, this is a important presentation today because I think a lot of people really do consider starting their own law firms, and there's a lot of good reasons to do so, and there's also a lot of good reasons not to. And it's actually something that I've done successfully or somewhat successfully. So I'm kind of uniquely positioned to talk about it, and also I speak with attorneys, almost on a daily basis that have their own law firms, and so I can hopefully provide you some good advice about it today. One of the things that a lot of people don't understand, and is very important to kind of put into context, but when you get a law license, really what a law license is it's a professional license, and it gives you the right to practice law, which only people with that license have. So it's almost like getting a business license. Some businesses require licenses, and practicing law is one of them. It gives you the right to practice that business, and it almost gives you a little bit of a monopoly, meaning certain people can't practice that business in the area, the country that you're in, the state. And so understanding that is very important because you don't necessarily go to law school, get a law degree, pass the bar so you can work for a law firm. You also go there to law school so you can get that license, which enables you to open a business practicing law. And you can open that business anywhere you want, in your state where you're licensed. So another thing is a lot of attorneys believe that having their own business is a real kind of route to success, and I agree. I mean, some people believe that they're going to be happiest when they have their own business and they have control over their own destiny, and that's something that having your own law firm can do. And starting your own law firm really is going to have, if you choose to do it, a major impact on your career, and it could lead in a very good direction where you're going to be successful and very happy, or it actually could destroy your career and hold you back. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to talk about the pros and the cons of having your own law firm, and give you some instructions about why it's a good idea, but also why you may not want to do it, because the odds are most small businesses that the people that open them actually end up failing, and so you need to see if you have the skill set, or if you have an interest in developing the skill set to have your own firm. So every great firm, of course, and that's out there, and there are tens of thousands of great law firms. I mean, they all started somewhere, and you can start your own law firm as well. There's nothing really that's preventing that, and but the only thing that's stopping most attorneys is understanding whether or not it's a good decision for them. So I was at a large law firm, Dewey Valentine in Los Angeles, which no longer exists, but it was an offshoot of it was a Los Angeles office of a major New York law firm, and I really didn't like working in a law firm, at least particularly that one. I saw a lot of politics. I believed it would be very hard to get ahead. I didn't understand how things really worked, and I just didn't feel like that would be a good long-term decision for me. And I had some of my own clients at the time. I was practicing law in the late 90s when there was a lot of new businesses started in Silicon Valley, and I had friends that had done that, and they were giving me business, and it was and so I was busy and with my own work, and I realized very quickly that with my own law firm I probably could make just as much money as working for this law firm, because because of the work that I was bringing in, and I figured I'd probably make even more because I'd figure out new ways to bring in different types of work and so forth. So back then, and this is so long ago, it's kind of funny, but the way to get business and for law firms was not by advertising online. It was actually by putting ads in the yellow pages. And so I thought through what kind of ads I wanted to run, and I came up with a name for the law firm, and I pre-ordered some ads for the law firm, on the internet for 700. I mean, in the yellow pages, and I picked a date for when I was going to leave the law firm, and set up an office. I rented an office. I purchased a copier, which I figured I would need, a Dell computer, and I was all set to go. I had, was ready to start my law firm, and I'd already lined up clients. I was more than confident that I could bring in, at least $100,000 to $200,000 a year from these clients, and I figured that would be enough money to sustain a law firm. I also understood that, even without that, I would need additional sources of business. So I wanted to have clients coming in all the time, and that's why I put the ad in the yellow pages. And this is so long ago that it was actually more important to have a yellow pages advertisement than it was to have a website. So I didn't build a website or anything. I just had a yellow pages advertisement. And just out of this little these two ideas, I want you to start thinking like a business person if you do want to start your own law firm. I had business, so I had enough business to keep me busy to make money. But in addition to having business, I understood that I would need continual sources of new business to refresh the existing business. So every business needs to have, hopefully, existing ongoing business, but then also new sources of business. So an example would be, a store that sells things locally, maybe a clothing store, but then it also has a mail order component or an online site, so it has two sources of revenue. You always need to have multiple sources of revenue coming into any business, and so this is something I understood. I'd had a business before, an asphalt business, and so I had some business understanding, and that was kind of the way I thought about it. So I gave notice to my firm. I went home. I decided I would start this firm in January, in the early January, and so I came back to my law firm in early January after Christmas break, and I sent around an email telling everyone that I was leaving, and no one responded. I gave 2 weeks notice, and everyone acted like nothing was really happening. And then the Thursday before the Friday, so one day before I left, the managing partner of the firm's office came by my office, and he said something that I'll never forget, and that you should also remember. He said, if you leave here and start your own practice, you're going to have the next to impossible time getting a job in a large law firm ever again. And if you're unhappy here, you should just speak to some other law firms and then take a few months to decide if this is really what you want to do. And that's what he said. And, so incredibly, the law firm, said, to try to take a few months to figure out what I wanted to do. And to continue working while I looked around. And the first thing that they did is they had a legal recruiter call me, who I hired, which is pretty funny, about 6 months later. But they had a legal recruiter call me, and I started going out on interviews while I was also doing the work that Dewey Valentine had. And I started speaking, with clients that were calling up, and having questions about, legal services. So I would, call them, meet with them at my other office kind of after hours. And I'd get off work at, 6 or so, and I'd drive and meet people in the evening at the office that I'd rented. And I had new clients. I got clients very quickly. I got a law school dean of a major university around Los Angeles, that had gave me a $10,000 retainer, and he had kind of an unusual circumstance where he'd only slept with his wife once, and they had a baby together, and they lived together, and the daughter was like, 7 or 8, and I had a guy that was local in the city I was living in, who was 18, and was pulled over while high in crystal meth and drunk, and I actually referred him to another attorney, if you can believe it, and the other attorney sent me $7,500. I had a married woman with multiple boyfriends and 3 children who wanted a divorce. I had a man who was fired at a job from a veterinary hospital, for sexual harassment, wanted to sue the hospital for sexual harassment, and then the hospital accused him of sexually abusing the animals, and then I had another woman who claimed that a teacher was biting her 4-year-old child to punish him, and then the teacher admitted doing it, and it was the only way to make the child shut up. I mean, some of these cases that walked in and the people that I met, I was much younger at the time, and I'm ashamed to admit that it was both entertaining, but in some case, sad. I mean, so I thought these matters were interesting, but I just, I didn't really. It wasn't something I felt like that I wanted to participate in the long term. The reality, of running a law firm like that, though, was, these things just walked in, from the Yellow Pages, and a lot of this stuff I just felt so depressing. I just decided against having my own law firm. I felt bad for the law school dean. I didn't feel so bad for the kid who was, that was caught on drugs and stuff, but I just felt bad for a lot of these people, and I didn't like the side of life and people I was seeing. And so during this period of contemplation, while I was interviewing with clients and so forth, and pushing these cases along, I became more and more interested in doing something else. I would go out and interview with law firms, and I was seeing kind of one aspect of things, which was the attorneys inside of the law firms, and then I was also seeing what it would be like to have my own practice, and it just, none of this stuff was appealing to me. It didn't appeal to me to have these kind of small clients, and with a mix of large clients, it wasn't interesting enough to me, and it didn't, wasn't something that was appealing to me. And during the same time, I was talking to legal recruiters who were sending me out on all these interviews, and it was, I want to be clear with you that I was getting a lot of interviews because it was just a very good legal market at the time. It wasn't. It was just the world was kind of booming. It was prior to the .com explosion, but it was doing very well. So I was going on interviews like almost every day, and talking to these legal recruiters, and they seemed to be the ones that were having the most fun and enjoying themselves. I mean, they just seemed very happy. I enjoyed talking to them about the business. The attorneys I was talking to didn't seem happy. The matters I was dealing with didn't seem happy. And I just, for some reason, I just started gravitating towards this legal recruiting and placement. It just seemed much more interesting to me than having my own law practice. And so I started researching it and involving myself in it and seeing what was being done wrong, and I became very interested in that. And I want to say, too, that a lot of attorneys end up in joining businesses or starting businesses of things that they're exposed to with their clients, and that's something that might have happened to me in the long run too. So this topic just comes up all the time, about people also wanting to start their own law firms, and it can work out, and in my case, had I been interested in it and thrown myself into it, I'm 100% positive that it would have worked out. But it often doesn't work out, and I'm going to talk to you, about why it doesn't, and then I'm going to talk to you about, whether or not you should do it, and that's something that you really want to think about. So, the big thing I think, is that, I actually, never have left the practice of law for the most part. In time after starting my legal placement firm, BCG, and then some other companies related to legal placement, I actually, did start a law firm to handle matters for the companies, and then sometimes I would handle matters for outside people and businesses, just because I was kind of interested in it to see what was going on. I wouldn't be too involved. There were attorneys working for me that did it, but at the same time, it was something that I worked on. And the law firm, it was always been kind of moderately successful, because the clients are the companies, so there's captive clients. They, obviously the legal fees are paid or not, a lot or anything like that. But I know I live in a fairly small town, where there are only two other small law firms. There's a lot of wealthy people in the town, and and I also know how to recruit attorneys to do the work. So, but the idea is, unless I had a built-in client base, knew how to recruit attorneys, and was in a market without a lot of competition, the law firm wouldn't really be off the ground at all. So, and I personally don't put any time into it like I should. So it's not what I would say, a successful law firm by any stretch of the imagination. But I know what it would take to make it successful. And one thing that you also need to think about if you're starting a business, any type of business, is every business needs, some special advantage and selling point to succeed. What do you do that your clients need and that your clients can't do? Do you have any special skills or special, it's not enough to have gone to a good law school. It's not enough to, be good at one thing or not another. You need to have something that you can market that makes you unique. It could be that you're from a small town, or you're from a certain area, or, your parents are, very involved in the government. It could be all sorts of things, but you need to have some sort of special advantage or selling point. And then the other thing is you need to have a pipeline of matters consistently coming into your firm. So you need to have, the ability to constantly have, new matters coming in, and that's very important, because if you don't have work coming in, then you don't have anything, and you can't just expect people to come to you because you're an attorney. It used to be that way, maybe a long time ago, but for the most part, you need to have lots of things coming in all the time, and it's very important. So here are the top 10 reasons that I believe you should start your own law firm, and some of the advantages of doing so. And I'll go through these, and then after I've gone through these reasons, I will also talk about the reasons you might not want to, so you can kind of evaluate things based on that. The first reason to start your own law firm would be if you have a group of clients who will go with you and you trust them to give you work, or you believe that your former law firm or corporation or wherever you've worked in the past will give you work. And many attorneys leave law firms believing that they have very close relationships with certain clients, and if they leave the law firm, those clients will continually give them work. And in some cases, you may have worked for a client for a long time, and and so you may believe that the client will follow you. And there's some truth to that. I mean, I know many patent attorneys who do work for large clients in various industries, and they're very, very good at what they do. They could be, have a special skill in molecular biology or something, or if the attorney leaves the firm and they've been doing all the patents for that company, and the company is very happy with them, then the company is likely to continually give them work. And the client may like the attorney, appreciate their sophistication, be interested in continuing the work, whether or not the person is a solo practitioner. And so that happens. And I know lots of attorneys that have left that are patent attorneys and real estate attorneys and other practice areas. Corporate is another one. One case I saw, it was kind of funny. The law firm is no longer in existence, but I saw the general counsel of a healthcare company leave the company, and then he started his own law firm, and built it up to over 50 attorneys doing work for the healthcare company. And it actually was a very successful firm for a while. And then the healthcare company decided that the attorney was overbilling them or something, the firm, and the entire law firm went out of business almost overnight because it was the only client. So you need to be very careful if you're going to leave a law firm and decide whether or not a client will follow you and give you work. You need to be really make sure you have a good relationship with that attorney, with that client, and preferably you have the ability to have multiple clients. It's very rare, by the way, that a large law firm client is going to, that's represented by a major law firm is going to, peel off and go to work for solo practitioners. So that's just something to keep in mind. You may be able to do that with some clients, but in general, it's not going to be easy. So that's just something that I, really would, work on, thinking about, because, it's not necessarily something, that can happen. Another thing that happens is, and this is also very common, is an attorney will leave a large law firm, and that law firm will continue to send them work. So there's a lot of very prestigious law firms out there that when people leave and set up their own practices, send those attorneys work, and they do so consistently. So, if your former law firm sends work to you, you can be in very good shape. And, this can happen, and it happens a lot. If you have a good relationship with your firm, when you leave, then, they may send you a lot of work. And I've seen that. I know some firms in Los Angeles that are, pretty much, started by, one or two people that left the firm, and then that firm just continually sends them work that there may be conflicts with, and so forth. So if you can maintain a good relationship with your firm, and the people there, and they really like you, and just for whatever reason they could elevate you to a higher position, or they couldn't give you, they could share work in there. A lot of times they prefer to send them to people who they know will do good work, and that can be very helpful. So I just know lots of attorneys that have left large law firms, and they did so on good terms after not being made partner. And sometimes, major law firms just don't have, because they're especially older ones, they just don't have room for more partners, or, it's very, very difficult. So, if you leave on good terms, then they often feed them, enough work, and you can be successful as a solo, or you can even build up a large law firm on your own. I mean, with other attorneys, because they'll feed you enough work. And a lot of major American law firms got started, by one or two attorneys that were associates, even breaking off and starting their own law firms, and then their former law firm sending them to work, and maybe in a practice area type of client that firm didn't represent. So the only thing to be careful of is that law firms will often stop sending work if they feel like anybody's having a bad experience, with that firm, where they're overcharging and stuff. And a lot of times, new law firms do fall into, give clients a bad experience, and that can, they'll overcharge and all sorts of things, which I'll talk a little bit about later. Another thing that, sometimes attorneys will leave in-house positions and be able to get their former company to feed them work, and that can happen. The company may want to, keep giving the attorney that was in-house work because they understand the company, and that can be extremely helpful. If the company, the work isn't, extremely expensive. The problem that often happens, though, is the company will, often, kind of resent that they're paying more for the in-house attorney if the attorney's got their own practice and they're paying their in-house, and so they may not continue sending work. But but it does happen, and so you can make money with your former company, but this type of stuff, for in-house counsel, can change very quickly because especially companies, they can be very fickle in terms of who they're sending work to and so forth. Another thing that can be helpful is if you have support from a group of other attorneys that and trust will work with you. So Many attorneys will often leave a law firm and start firms with a group of peers who become the new partners. When I was practicing, I had several offers from people to do that, and even after I started doing what I'm doing right now, I talked to other attorneys that were doing it. And if attorneys, any group of attorneys that's worked together for any length of time, may often complement each other's strengths and weaknesses, and it can be a very good thing to have partners. It can also be a bad thing, which I'll talk about later. But most great firms were founded by groups of people that had various skills. So one attorney may be exceptional at business development and much more effective than the other attorneys. Another attorney may be very good at managing financial matters of the firm. And then, another group of attorneys may have a reputation for, doing very, very good work, and they may be focused on that. And then another, attorney may have good interpersonal skills that are used for recruiting. So I know lots of firms, recruiting other attorneys where, they always have a really good business development person, and they have kind of a finance person, and then they have a, group of workers that get the work done, people that help, recruit other attorneys. And so if you have a group of people like that, and if you're thinking about starting your own law firm, that's often a good way, because you can, all those people can kind of get together and work together. And this can actually work much better in the long run than a solo practitioner arrangement many times, because the idea is that people are coming together to grow a business, and each one has well-defined responsibilities to make the group run efficiently. Now, partnerships, by the way, often break up, and there's part problems, and people fight about money and the value of relative contributions, and they can be very, very difficult. But if you want to scale something, you typically are going to need a lot more people, to do it. And and when you leave, when attorneys leave firms, they, if they partners have worked together for a long while, and when they're leaving, and already have clients, leaving may allow them to have already kind of a ready-made law firm and be ready to succeed. And that can be very useful, because clients are going to be much more comfortable too sending work to a group of 4 or 10 attorneys inside of a law firm that they worked with previously than they may have been comfortable. They may be comfortable working with one client, so you can, or one attorney, so you can likely bring in much bigger clients. Another thing is, that if you have, these arrangements, are really something that I've seen drove many of the most successful law firms in the country that started, is when they have people like that. So, that can be very, very effective as well. Another thing that can be is a good reason to start your own law firm is, if you're in a very narrow specialty, meaning, you have a very rare skill or something that's fairly rare, and you're confident that you're going to keep getting business from various types of clients. So some practice areas I've seen that work are patent law, real estate, some types of corporate law, sometimes like ERISA, employee benefits has worked. You may be like an expert. If you're in patent law, for example, you may be an expert in certain types of microwave frequencies, patenting a certain class of drugs, or some kind of exotic electronic device. And there may not be a lot of people that have that experience. I mean, there's some patent attorneys where there's just very, very few people in the country that do that type of work. Other attorneys may know how to do a certain type of tax transaction. For example, like ERISA work, or set up certain types of corporations, or do other corporate transactions, or know different types of clients may do certain types of real estate transactions, and the attorney may know how to do those, and that can be helpful. And so if an attorney has several years of experience in a certain practice area, and certain clients that always need that work, the odds are always good that one or more of those clients may follow the attorney if they leave, because it's just too difficult to find people to do that type of work. And I've seen lots of attorneys, succeed when they have those kind of very specific narrow skill sets, and many times the ones that do succeed the most are in kind of non-contentious practice areas. I don't know why that is. It tends to be transactional and the type of work that it's very difficult to find people to do it. But that's been my experience. But I guess that's not always the case. And then for litigation, many times the people that do well are I've seen are people that do kind of employment-related work. But regardless of what the work you do, you need to have a very well-defined skill, and this work needs to be specialized in a way that work is going to constantly be sent your way, and that you're going to be the absolute best alternative for the company. And and usually it's just something that and the idea is, from the company standpoint, is having you work on stuff that you understand very well saves them a lot of work in terms of getting someone else up to speed. They may have had problems with different types of attorneys doing the work in the past, and that can really hurt them as well. So, but if they're trusted and you know what you're doing, that can help. Another thing is, and this was one reason that I think I was able to be so confident in starting my own practice, is if you have substantial business experience and you've already succeeded in business doing something else, you'll have kind of you'll understand the business, and you'll know what it's going to take you to succeed, and you'll be very confident you'll succeed. So, some people just have natural business skills or have learned business at a very young age. I mean, from the time I was 9 years old, I was saying I was 11, so I could have a paper route, and not that taught me a lot of business skills, but I learned business from a very young age because I was always doing it. I was trading things and getting clients. Whether it was when I was younger selling Christmas cards. I mean, just all sorts of things that I did to make myself much more. To learn how to business, and then when I was younger, I also read a lot of marketing books and in spare time, and I just had an overall drive and to succeed in business. It was something that appealed to me, and you have to look at what appeals to you. I mean, if business appeals to you, I mean, you may not even want to be have a law firm. You may want to do some other type of business, but if you understand business, it definitely can help you quite a bit. And so a lot of times when attorneys succeed when they start their own business, they really do look at it as a business. And if you can look at your business as a business, you might do very, very well. And I hate to say this, and I really dislike saying this, but your business skills may actually be more effective in terms of how you succeed than your legal skills, or where you went to law school, or your legal training. I mean, sometimes getting business is the most important thing. In my career, I run across people all the time. I ran across someone, not too even a couple of weeks ago, that had a giant personal injury firm. I mean, just a huge thing, and with their own firm. And this person, did it right out of law school. I mean, so they with a good business mind, I mean, you can start and succeed practicing law very, very easily. I mean, you can start a very good business, and the reason is because most attorneys really don't have great business minds, and they often start firms for the wrong reasons. I mean, most attorneys believe that practicing law is just about practicing law, and when you run your own practice, it's really about understanding how to get business and how to keep business and how to keep clients happy and all that sort of thing. So, the attorneys that start firms, they often do so for the wrong reasons. So they may want to have freedom and independence, and that's much different than having a good business mind. Or they may want to, I don't know, they having a good legal mind does not make you a good business person. And so, you have to think about, how do I get clients? How do I do this? How do I do that? And most attorneys, by the way, regardless of the stage you're in, you should be reading a lot of business books and learning how to bring in business and customer service books and things like that, because that's going to make you get more work. It's going to make you make clients happier. It will make you much better. I mean, if you want to start your own practice, you're basically saying, I want to start a business. If you want to start a business, you need to learn how to run a business. And just because you're an attorney does not mean you're not a business person. And the most successful attorneys are the ones that know and treat their things like a business and their practices like a business. The next thing, another good reason is if you're in a small town and you'll be one of the only attorneys in the town. Now, when I say small town, the first law firm I started in a town of maybe 10, 12,000 people outside of Los Angeles, a town called San Marino, California, which actually, because I lived in the town, people liked their town and they would come do work with me. So you can be in a major market. I mean, you can be, even in a part of Brooklyn probably, and have your own law firm. And the law firm that I have in Malibu became moderately successful just because there weren't a lot of options for people that wanted a local lawyer. People would just kind of walk in and with various types of work, and people would have money to spend on legal services. And so, but in reality, I mean, the people that are the heavy hitters, I mean, they're going to drive to LA or West Los Angeles if they have serious legal issues, and they're not going to use a small law firm. But nevertheless, I mean, you do have a geographic advantage if you work in a smaller market in terms of bringing in business, and so you should always think about where you're going to set up your practice, and the better off you're going to be much better off if you set up your practice in a smaller market where people are going to need you, where you can start relationships with local business people and local families, and really kind of settle in that way. Because if you do that, you're going to be there's not going to be a lot of people like you, and that's going to be very, very helpful for you as well. So if you can do that, so it's really one of the smartest things you can do. I mean, if you're the only doctor in town, people need to use someone, and it's the same thing with being a lawyer. I've had instances, I mean, a couple actually, where I've had attorneys call me from small, remote towns around the country. I'm thinking right now of someone that was in a desert community. I mean, like, when I say desert, I mean, I'm not talking about Palm Springs. I'm talking about, like, in the desert somewhere, where they were the only attorney in their town, and the closest attorney was like 45 minutes away or an hour away, other attorney. And so, and this person had a practice. It was consistently generating, a couple $100,000 or more per year. And they would actually call and ask me if I could find them someone to take over their practice. They just wanted to, they wanted to retire. And, and there's people like that all over the country. So, if you really want to practice law, then, you can go to small towns and small markets, and where there's not a lot of attorneys, and you can often make a very good living there as well. And you may not be able to charge as much money, but you can definitely bring in work. I mean, if you're the only option, think about it just from a business standpoint. And you can be very successful. One of the things is, if you're from a smaller market where people know you, you can be successful. And in larger cities, I mean, are competitive. I mean, it's just it can be much more difficult because there's just a lot of attorneys competing for work. So there's certainly a lot more money and a lot more people running around, but it's also much more difficult to form relationships and all sorts of things. So if I was trying to start a practice and I wanted to guarantee that I would be fairly successful and have work, I probably would try to go to a small town, and then I would try to develop really good relationships there. And the nice thing about being an attorney in a smaller market is you're actually respected for being an attorney, whereas in big markets, I mean, no one really cares that you're an attorney or not, and so that can be helpful. Another thing that I've seen people succeed and do very, very well is when they have like a wealthy family or friends, and they're just confident they're going to continually send them work. I've seen lots of attorneys, succeed that have friends or family members that could send them work. So, and one instance that I always think about when I think about this is I received a call a few years ago from an attorney, and he called me, and he was 15 years out of law school. He was a partner in a good-sized firm in I think in Virginia or something, and and he'd been fired and had no idea what he was going to do. They just basically told him that he couldn't work there anymore, even though he was a partner, because he didn't have enough work, and he was looking for a position in another law firm. And when I asked him if he had any work, he said no, but he had a brother-in-law that has a big company, might send him work. And so I just said, well, why don't you just call your brother-in-law and speak with him about that? And a few days later, he called me and told me that he didn't need my help finding a job after all. Because the brother-in-law, was basically said, I was waiting for you to call me and ask me for when you were going to call me and ask me if you could do work for me. So he never actually asked him, and so the brother-in-law, said he'd been sending $1 million a year in litigation to a law firm he didn't really like, and that his brother-in-law should stop screwing around working for law firms instead of his own law firm. So that's what he did, and he became very successful. He was bringing in more clients after a few years because he had a good client, and he was just very, very happy, and his confidence was up. So, if you have a wealthy family or a family with a business or very wealthy friends you grew up with or something, or people that can help you, then those are people that, and you believe they'll continually send you work, and you won't rip them off, and you'll keep them on your side. That can be very helpful. So, if you have someone who's sending you a lot of work, then that's great. It's very, especially with a family member or close friends. Now, things can go horribly wrong when you get work from parents and friends and stuff. But at the same time, it can be very, very helpful. And again, all this stuff is just thinking like a business person, because the most important thing for the survival of any law firm is having lots of work constantly. And work is a lifeline. So if a close family member or friend is willing to give you work, it can often ensure that you'll do well with your law firm. And it's a cautionary tale. You should always try to expand your practice beyond one close client. You should have as many possible clients as you can. Another thing that I think this is number 7 that makes people can do very well is if you're a hustler and you don't really care what other people think of you. You're not afraid to do any type of work, whether it's personal injury, fighting the IRS, workers' compensation, wills, pretty much anything you can do to make money. If you're happy doing that, then there's nothing really to then you can do well. And there's people that make lots of money and have very good practices doing all these sorts of things. So. If you really want to succeed, you shouldn't really have any fear of what kind of practice you should do. You shouldn't have like these class distinctions and distinctions about the fact that you may not want to do a certain type of work. Your pride should just really never be an issue when you're building a business. You should just you should care about what gets the bills paid. And a lot of the major firms, by the way, Skadden started, for example, when doing mergers and acquisitions, which didn't used to be considered a very prestigious practice area. It used to be considered something that only bad attorneys did, and actually the people that started doing it back then were Jewish, and it was not those Jews weren't hired by a lot of big law firms, and so that was sort of an outside practice area. Same thing with bankruptcy. Bankruptcy's always been kind of a working class type practice area, like with more working class people that, and then the people that were hired to do it were not traditionally the large prestigious firms. Now that's all changed, of course, but a lot of big law firms have become very successful by doing the sorts of work that other people won't do. So you should be think of yourself as doing the work that other people don't want to do, and where do you make money? I mean, you have to. You're running a business, and you're getting a business off the ground, and so you shouldn't care as long as you're doing well. I mean, that's great. You should start out, aspiring to advertise on the radio and television, and you should have no problem making videos online telling people to use your services. And in short, I mean, if you want to be successful, you're going to need to. You're going to need to want it. You're going to need to hustle. You're going to want to get the word out, have that energy. And you really shouldn't care what other attorneys think about you. I mean, if you're building a business, that's great. I mean, the best marketers out there are showmen, salesmen, and they're able, to build businesses and get stuff going, and get people excited about their business and using their services. And you need to be a marketer. Even the biggest firms have often been accused of doing too much marketing. So you just need to learn how to be a marketer, kind of get out there and do what you can to get people excited. And in my business, I mean, right now I'm making a video. I make videos, of course. I send out marketing emails, and I hustle. I mean, you have to do that with any business, especially if it's a small business. And the thing is, I mean, a lot of attorneys are very kind of conscious of how they look to others. They don't want to stick out. It's really something that's endemic in the profession. And it's not like that with all attorneys, but it's like that with a lot of attorneys, and the majority of them. And so they don't want to be criticized. They want to kind of keep low and that sort of thing. So in my business, I mean, did people make fun of and criticize me for being out there and attracting attention? Of course. And do I care about that? When I was younger, I will admit that I did. I was bothered if people were critical of me and competitors were and stuff. But I now I don't really care, and I know that I have to do what I do to run a business and to be successful. And I guess what I could do is I could compare my success to those who are critical, because most of the people that are critical, that are critics of you when you're getting out there, many times are jealous. So you shouldn't be afraid to do whatever it takes. And if you look at the most successful people out there, I mean, what you'll generally see is they're really never afraid at all to put themselves out there. I mean, think about all the showmen. I mean, you can become president of the United States if you're a showman. I mean, you can be you can be a very successful business person if you're a showman. I mean, even Jobs and other people. Steve Jobs was a showman. All the most successful business people. Warren Buffett's a showman. I mean, anybody that becomes successful most of the time is a show person, and so they get out there, they self-promote themselves, they take a stance on stuff, and that makes them very, very successful. So think about that. I mean, if you are nervous about doing any of this stuff, you can also change. I certainly changed. I became a much different person and learned how to kind of throw off the shackles of that thought process. And you just need to get out there and hustle and do what you can to be successful and to get people's attention. Okay, and then there's other reasons too to start your own firm, and this is actually very important. I mean, psychologically and for a variety of reasons, many people just can't get along working with other people or groups, and they may hate working with other people, groups, or in an instructional environment. So, many people, work better alone. I mean, that's just how they're made up, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, you may be. Some people are just very introverted, and that's good. I mean, introverts can do extremely well in a lot of different things. There's nothing wrong with this. I mean, you may be uncomfortable taking orders. You may be uncomfortable, working in an instructional environment or getting along with people. that's okay. I mean, these are skills you can try to learn, but if they don't come naturally to you and you don't think you're going to change, then who cares? I mean, just do things the way you're comfortable doing it. You don't have to like working in a law firm. You don't have to like people. You don't have to like whatever, working in an instruction environment. You don't have to like taking orders from other people. You can do whatever you want, and that's one of the benefits of having your own practice. And many law attorneys are more comfortable doing that, and that's why it's a good reason for them to start their own law firm. Many solo practitioners, just don't like working with other people. But sometimes they fight with everyone. I mean, they get nervous around other people, or and so they need to do something on their own, or they're more comfortable, working at home, or they're just socially awkward. Who knows? It doesn't matter. Or they're too socially outgoing to be in a law firm. I mean, there's just every possible thing. And so if you just can't handle it, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, maybe there's a point in time when you can, but maybe you just don't like it, and that's perfectly fine. I personally used to work in a huge office. I worked, when I was actually not practicing law, when I was doing the legal placement business. I mean, I used to have over 100 people that I was working with in an office, in our company, and I didn't like it. I mean, I really didn't. I didn't like having to be in a big environment like that, because there was always, drama, and it actually seemed much more harder to get work done, to concentrate, than it was, without that. So, and then another reason to start your own firm is if you just can't find a job. And personally, I've done lots of presentations about finding jobs, and you should review those. I think anyone that wants to can find a job, but many times people don't have a gap on the resume, so they put down that they have had, that they have a job, and that's perfectly fine. That's something, you can do if you feel like you're doing a little bit of work. There's nothing wrong with putting down that you, have a solo practitioner or, a small law firm on your own. As long as you're honest and you really do have some work to do. You should at least be doing something. And it's better to have something on your resume than nothing. So, if you're operating as a solo practitioner, as a solo practitioner, it's better to look like someone is paying you for your work, and it's better to have something on your resume than nothing. I just believe it. So I don't think there's anything wrong with anyone putting down that they have a solo practitioner if that's something. To kind of, take care of a gap. And as long as you're somewhat engaged in doing some work, then I think it's perfectly fine. But, the idea is that, most large law firms will expect you to, at least have, something, be doing something if they're going to hire you. So you need to have something in your resume. And then the final reason, is if you honestly just don't care about how much money you make, you're not concerned about necessarily respect, which you can get with a solo practitioner job, but you just want to do your own firm, do things the way you want to do it. And a lot of people would never consider not working in a law firm if they're practicing law, because they want to have the respect associated with it. And a lot of people would never consider not working in a law firm because they want to make a lot of money. And if you don't care about these things, then that's perfectly fine. I mean, and this is a great reason, to open your own practice. I mean, many attorneys just reach the conclusion that they want to do things their own way and do things, and sometimes that can work out extremely well, and they can be very, very successful. So, these are all things that you need to think about, and if you just want to have your own firm, you can. I wouldn't recommend doing that, going into things kind of half-cocked, but I definitely, think it can be a great idea. Okay, so I'm going to go into the top 10 reasons not to start your own law firm after a quick break, which will be about probably 1 to 2 minutes. Thanks. Oh my God, no. Okay, so welcome back. So this next part is the top 10 reasons not to start your own law firm. And, while there's good reasons to start your own law firm, there's also, a lot of reasons that, you really need to consider. I mean, first of all, most attorneys are very risk averse, so, the majority of attorneys will not start their own law firm because of that risk averse. And so you have to, if you're going to start your own law firm, you really need to ask yourself if it's something, that you believe you can do or not. And it's just, without being too pessimistic, I mean, you need to realize, too, that the majority of new businesses, and law firms are businesses, will fail. And, when you're, as an attorney working in a law firm, you're working inside of a business. And it's a completely different thing to operate a business. Just like, being a coach isn't the same as being a professional, basketball player. I mean, they're just different things. I mean, they're different, different types of skills. The coach has a different skill than being a basketball player. So, they both may understand the game, but they just don't, they can't do each other's jobs. And so there's certain people that can run businesses, and there's other people that can't run businesses. And sometimes it works, and other times it doesn't. And it's an important thing to understand. So here are the reasons that most solo practitioners and law firms will fail. And when I say most of them, I don't think that failing is kind of relative. I mean, you fail when you don't have enough work, and and you fail when you're not happy, and you fail when there's all sorts of failure. But these are kind of the reasons that I see people fail most of the time. So the first thing is they fail because they don't understand that operating a business is much different than practicing law. So when you start your own business, there's lots and lots of things to understand. One of the things I ask attorneys when they tell me they want to open their own law firm is, how much money they're making. And if someone is making $200,000 a year, they may think that, if they can bill $400 an hour and just bill $500 a year, they're going to make just as much money. And to some extent, that may be true, but the problem is, that this is really kind of flawed logic. And the reason it's flawed is because, in addition to the $200,000 a year, the attorneys also need to get a nice office and a really nice building to go to every day. They're going to get other attorneys that they can bounce ideas off of. They're going to get, a phone system, internet, computer, IT people, secretaries, paralegals, other attorneys that are going to go out and bring in cases, the brand of the firm, reviews to keep the work quality up, and the brand of the firm makes a big difference. I mean, the law firm companies want to hire, people with big, they want to hire big brand law firms, and that can help. I mean, they'll also get paid vacation, they'll get, bonuses and health insurance and all those sorts of things. So, that goes along with it. Management will make decisions for them in terms of the people they're working with. So they'll decide who to hire, fire, where to get office space, types of phone systems, how to review different people, how many people they, when to open and close offices, all these things, different rooms for copiers and law librarians and IT staff and, payment of taxes and salaries and all that. So, so there's all that stuff that goes into it. So, and the thing is if an attorney doesn't have a specific, business acumen, then the expenses of a business, can quickly get ahead of a law firm, and all sorts of law firms collapse. I mean, it's very common. I mean, law firms collapse all the time, and and operating businesses is difficult. It's not easy, and you continually need to stay informed. You need to have recognizable goals. Most businesses, don't succeed and stick around more than a few years. Most of them fail within the first year, and a majority of them. And it's rare for most businesses to ever gross more than $1 million a year. So, it's important, to understand that, it's very, very difficult to run a business. And I used to have an asphalt business when I was younger, and I had crews that were working, 7 days a week. Sometimes they were working 24 hours a day. I had all sorts of trucks and equipment and insurance and so forth. I had, I figured if I brought in $100,000 a month, I was doing very, very well. To clear 10 or 15,000. So a profit margin of 10 to 15% is pretty good for a business. And that was kind of how I looked at it. Like, if I brought $100,000 a month and I actually made 10 or 15,000, I wasn't doing bad. So as a solo practitioner, if you gross $2 million, I mean, you still need to, pay for all these different things: office space, secretary, paralegal, copiers, bookkeeper, vacation days, and all this stuff can add up. And businesses fail because they have all these expenses and they don't understand how to control them. And it gets ahead of them. They want to have nice offices, they want to have nice furniture, they want to, have all these things, and it doesn't always work. And so then a lot of people, think that, the way to control it is to control their expenses. But practicing law is different than, running a business. I mean, running a business requires you to watch the money and to make a series of daily strategic decisions about, how to deploy money resources, how to, make sure that people aren't working when we don't need them, and how to have customer service, and how not to, have all sorts of problems. And, a few years ago I met a guy that used to be an attorney in a large law firm, and he had a huge book of business, and he was generating a few $1 million a year in fees for his firm, and making $400,000 to $500,000 a year. And decided, well, I'll just open my own practice and make more. And he went to all of his clients, and he told them that if they gave him a retainer, that he would do all the work that they needed for them. And he got about $1 million in retainers and thought he was doing very well. But after a year, he lost almost all of his clients. He just wasn't servicing them the same way, and they weren't as happy. And the clients also wanted, to have a larger firm behind him. So he wasn't able to pay his bills, and he became a financial advisor, basically, selling stocks and so forth. And so he, then became, basically approached the same clients that used to pay him, hundreds of dollars an hour, and ask them if they were interested in purchasing stocks. So, he didn't understand, how to run a business. And this is just something that even the best attorneys and the best law firms have problems with. I mean, just being an attorney is much different than running a business. And I have a lot of cautionary tales like this, and I certainly could, talk about them for a long, long time. But, what I'm trying to show you is that, running a business is much different than, working inside of a law firm. And, it's just, there's so much more to it. I mean, you need to, not just do the work when you're running a business, but you need to keep people working for you motivated. You need to make sure the work is constantly coming in. You need to keep your expenses down. You want to make sure your clients are always happy. And have really high customer service. And you need to make sure your clients pay their bills, which is actually a very difficult thing for a lot of small law firms. You need to recruit employees. You need to fire employees that aren't doing a good job. You need to speak with vendors all day. So instead of, you need to be, ordering, toner and renting copiers and buying computers. You need to advertise and promote the business. And this is a huge number of things. These things all detract from you billing hours, and none of the stuff is easy. It's not to say that this stuff is impossible. Of course it's not. But the issue is that these are completely different skills than someone practicing law. I mean, they're just a different type of thing. And if you don't feel like you have those skills, that's something that you should think about. One of the things that I would caution anybody that's interested in opening their own law firm is getting clients to pay your bills. That's very, very difficult, and I can tell you that from firsthand experience, because most solo practitioners and clients with small firms will tell you that they rarely collect 80% of what they bill. And I noticed when I was operating this business in Malibu that these, dealing with a lot of these, very aggressive business people that have a lot of money and stuff, they are very, very careful with their money, and they will look to get discounts and any way they possibly can. And if you don't have a big name behind you, and they feel like they can go elsewhere, then it's going to be very difficult to get people to pay their bills. A lot of times people just don't have the money. I mean, people will try to get attorneys to do work for free all the time. I mean, they'll walk in off the street and try to get you to do work for free, or they'll tell you, if you give them a lot of free legal work now, that they'll give you something, they'll help you in the future. They'll try to get. I mean, people will do all sorts of things to try to get out of paying you. And attorneys run the risk of not getting paid all the time. So it's very, very difficult when you have your own law firm to get paid consistently. And you just need to be very, very careful about what you're doing. And getting paid. It's difficult. It's very, very difficult. And many times solo practitioners will take small matters because they'll allow alternative payment arrangements and stuff. But there's always going to be a lot of bad debt on your books. And so what I would say is, that if you want people to have a replenished retainer at all times and so forth, that may work. I mean, that's what a lot of times people say when they're talking about starting their own practice. But it just doesn't always work. You need to bring in money, and people won't always pay you. It's just a very difficult thing. And even the best clients or the biggest clients are often going to be the hardest to get money from. So if you believe that you're going to be able to bill $500 a year, collect $500 a year, I'll say good luck with that, because that can be very, very difficult, and especially for law firms. One thing I will say about a lot of solo practitioners as well is I did a study of solo practitioners, and this is a long time ago. I mean, this is when I was in law school, but I spent a semester talking to them all over the country because I was interested in traveling around and wrote this kind of book about it, actually. But what I discovered after doing that was that the majority of them tended to make most of their money in small towns taking personal injury cases. So even if they did trust and estates or they did corporate law for local businesses, the majority of the money they made came from personal injury settlements of auto accidents and stuff, which I thought was very interesting. So rather than paying clients, it was always personal injury related stuff. Okay, and then a lot of times solo practitioners, another reason to think about starting your own, not starting your own firms, because most practitioners start their own firms because they don't really have any options. So it is very common for attorneys to become solo practitioners because they can't get jobs. So they may have gone to a bad law school. Sometimes you could graduate from a great law school, but during that economy, you may have gone into the wrong practice area at the wrong time, got laid off. So, corporate does very well in good economies and very poorly in bad economies. You may be senior. The geographic area you're in, there may not be any other jobs. You may have been in-house and another practice setting in government. Law firms will hire them. So, you may have had issues such as malpractice suits, legal problems, ethical problems, suspensions, and so forth that make employment, with a mainstream law firm difficult to impossible. So there's all sorts of things that can happen, and that make people do that is kind of their only option. And if that happens, it's just something to think about. You need to realize why a lot of people are doing it. Many times it's common, at least in big cities, many times, that many of these attorneys have substance abuse problems. They could be drugs or alcohol, or they maybe have had serious ones in the past that affect their performance, and availability, and ability to do work. So they can't make it to work on time, or they're fickle and they miss things, and their mind is slow or fast or whatever, but they're just not working out. So the point is a lot, of attorneys who become solo practitioners. And I'd say, when I say most, I don't know that that's accurate. I would say close to, but many of them do so because people won't hire them. So when you're hiring an attorney, most attorneys, people don't realize that. So if you're getting divorced or hiring a personal injury attorney, you may not be aware of the fact that the person you're hiring is a solo practitioner has those issues. But other law firms and stuff are, and larger clients are aware that for many people it's something of last resort. And I certainly don't think there's anything wrong with starting your own solo practice. I did it as well, and I had beliefs about why it was a smart thing to do. But many people do it because there's some sort of weakness or problems. And the problem is when you do start your solo practice, you're going to lose access to having access to the largest clients. You're not going to be able to get many times the most challenging work. Clients are going to be not as willing to pay as much money. You're not going to have the support systems. The training, and working around other sophisticated attorneys is going to go down. Getting work, that you bring in and give it to other attorneys in the law firm is going to go away. And you're also not going to have access to a steady paycheck as much either. So, and so the point is most, people that do start solo practices do so because they have to and not because they want to. That's not to say that I think it's a bad idea, but the idea, is that it's for many attorneys it's not something that's a good thing, and there's a stigma attached to it, and a lot of times it may be I'm doing this because no one else wants me, and there's of course two sides to every story. Many solo practitioners do become very successful. They do take on extremely important cases, and sometimes coming at things from a position of weakness can make them even more insightful because they see things in a different way. Many take on giant personal injury cases and have success far beyond what they may have had in a law firm, and this is the positive. So and many of the happiest attorneys are solo practitioners, and they may end up building large law firms, and there's nothing wrong with this. I mean, I honestly don't think there is. But the point is that you do need to understand that there is a stigma associated with it for some people, not for all, but for some people, and it's just something to be aware of. The other thing to understand is, once you become a solo practitioner, it becomes very difficult for most people, unless you have existing clients, to get hired by a large law firm and by large clients. And most good-sized companies, if they can afford to pay legal fees or large legal fees, are always going to choose larger law firms. They believe the name of the law firm is important. It shows the opposing side that client means business, and the law firm has a brand and people to back it up, and a lot of strength. If you're a solo practitioner, your odds of working on matters that are just as large as you were working on in a large law firm, even in a mid-sized law firm, are fairly slim. Most clients, if a good-sized company is using a solo practitioner, the other side is going to think that they look weak, and it's just and they'll take advantage of that attorney. They'll overwork them. They'll play all sorts of kind of games, and and it just sends a message that maybe the other side doesn't have a lot of money, and that sort of thing. And So there's just not a lot of incentive for most large clients to hire solo practitioners because the larger clients, typically want the resources of a larger firm. And, even very wealthy clients will use, large law firms in divorces and for trust and estates work and stuff. So, the biggest people, typically, and the most important clients are going to use, larger firms. And there's some exceptions. I mean, I've seen a lot of real estate developers, with trusted relationships, for example, with solo practitioners. I've seen a lot of, wealthy people that have used solo practitioners for different types of work, and that can work as well. So, it's not to say that, people don't use solo practitioners. It's just something that, is kind of rare. And the other thing that I mentioned to you earlier is a lot of solo practitioners, make a large portion of their money from contingency-related work. So, especially personal injury, and the majority of them are doing some of this work. I mean, even on the even ones that are doing transactional work, many times are doing personal injury-related work. And this is more true in in smaller markets, but a lot of times they'll take an interest in things that are happening. A real estate attorney might take a small amount of equity in a deal or something, or a corporate attorney might take a small amount of equity. So they're kind of doing like these side type deals for things, and these are things that most large law firms don't do. I mean, there's certainly exceptions, like Gunderson and a few other firms that have become famous for taking interest in their clients. But for the most part, large law firms believe it's much safer to get paid now rather than get paid later. So a lot of solos will come up with kind of these alternative fee agreements. And the other thing is, the solo practitioners spend a lot of their time, negotiating things and negotiating their fees, and so they just don't have enough clients that are willing to pay them by the hour. So they take things, as they come in, and and they do them, and a lot of it's contingency or interest in things, and that's just how they get things done. Another thing that I hesitate to bring up, because it doesn't happen for all attorneys, but your skills will often deteriorate if you're a solo practitioner. And the reason for this is that solo practitioners have a very difficult time attracting large clients. So they spend their time typically working on a lot of smaller matters. Not all of them, but a lot of them do. And smaller clients will run out of money faster, and they negotiate rates aggressively. They don't pay their bills on time, or don't pay them at all. And they aren't necessarily looking for the sort of thoroughness and in-depth research and so forth that people get when they go to a large law firm. So they develop ways of doing work quickly and pushing it out the door, and so they can do work as quickly as possible and get paid, the minimal amount that they're going to get paid. And if you're doing work for like a lot of clients that don't have deep pockets, the quality of the work is going to deteriorate, and you're not going to spend as much time in each matter, and you're going to, limit, the amount of work you do, and you're going to develop bad habits, and so eventually that's going to affect, your ability, what kind of attorney you are. I've hired lots of solo practitioners, who formerly worked in large law firms, and to work in my law firm over the past couple of decades. And, in some cases, these attorneys were at the very top of their class, from top law firms, top law schools, and had worked in major law firms. But, when they had, when they started the solo practitioners, they developed horrible habits. I mean, they would take shortcuts, they would, figure out how to do things without quality, and get paid as much money as possible, as quickly as possible. Poor work products. They just didn't do a good job. And so, attorneys from large law firms typically, have checks and balances around them. They're expected to do things a certain way. and they won't develop those sorts of habits. But many times in a large law firm they will. So, and a small law firm they will. There's no peers reviewing their work. They almost always end up, many times developing poor work product. And it's not necessarily their fault. It's just that, they're expected, to push work out very quickly, and they don't have the option of spending a lot of time on things because the clients simply aren't paying for it. And so that makes a difference in the kind of quality attorney you become. The other thing to think about too is if you're starting a law firm with other attorneys, this sort of union will rarely, very rarely last, and because partnerships break up, and they often do. Very, very quickly and very, very predictably. They just hardly ever last. They typically break up because of disputes about money. So, you may have some friends that you're working with right now that you like, or you think are going to be, good people to start a firm with, or, but each party, typically is going to be fighting for more money, saying that they work hard, or they're contributing more, and so forth. And so, and people are going to feel wrong, people are going to take sides, and there'll be people that are in, people that are out, and so forth. And so, when that happens, the big thing that I typically notice is, there's just not a lot of, cooperation, and these groups will break up, and they almost always do. And partners will leave, or certain partners will leave. And I've seen this play out so many times I can't even, count. But the ones that do work out can be very, very good. But most of the times they don't. People just don't feel they're contributing equally. And there's the firms do not know how to. The small law firms that are new do not know how to balance this, and large law firms, many times they have processes and methods developed over decades, to determine who's entitled to what and how things happen. And even when that happens, there are people upset. And it's a very, very difficult thing to do. So new law firms just don't have that experience, and so they many times end up imploding. And that's or not imploding, but people leave, or they go back into big law firms if they have a successful smaller firm and stuff. So it's very, very difficult. These unions very rarely last, and you just can't anticipate what's going to happen. The other thing I would say is law firms really do provide a good structure that makes people successful compared to what you may find being a solo practitioner. So, law firms tend to emphasize billable hours and collections, and by emphasizing billable hours, what that's doing is it's making you create work, meaning you'll find extra things to do. They have partners that are rewarded disproportionately based on bringing in the most money and who's extracting the most money from their clients. They have a variety of practice groups, and so they have corporate litigation, real estate, and all these things. And so this keeps the money coming in when one practice group may have issues. They have finance departments to watch the finances, human resources to watch the people, marketing to bring in work. They're constantly pushing out core performers. There's all sorts of things going on in law firms that are difficult for solo practitioners to even grasp. And so there's all these processes, and those are continually improving. And a solo practitioner has none of these things. They tend to, and a lot of times your work is going to go into lower value administrative and other matters than you would have to do in a large law firm. The other thing that you need to really understand, and this I hate to bring up, but it's true, is that solo practitioners generally aren't as respected by judges, clients, and others, and this puts them in a difficult role. They're just not going to as expected. The judges typically will not, get respect them as much. They'll lose more often than a lot of attorneys from large law firms because they're not as connected. Judges, opposing counsel, and so forth typically have a lot more respect for larger firms than they do for solo practitioners. So that's something to think about. As I said earlier, very few important clients ever allow a solo practitioner to be involved in significantly matters. So, regardless of whether the solo practitioner can do the work, clients know that solo practitioners are just not likely to be taken seriously by the other side. So, and this is something that's very important for you to understand. If you are a solo practitioner, you are going to have a harder time not only getting clients, but many times making your case in court and so forth. And there is some prejudice, when a judge, sits on committees with attorneys from big firms, when they are, see that big firm in front of them all the time, when they trust that big firm attorney more, and there's all sorts of reasons that law firms, judges, other people will respect large firms better. It's also easier to bring in clients if you're at a bigger firm. So there's all sorts of reasons, that you should think about very carefully. A final thing, and then there's two more things, is that once you become a solo practitioner, you can almost never go back to a large law firm. So, unless you have very unique skills, for example, you're a patent prosecutor or a certain type of corporate attorney, and you have a significant book of business where your clients are paying similar to what, amounts of what they would pay a large law firm, the odds of you going back to a large law firm are very slim. And the reasons are fairly, like I've talked about a lot of them already. But, one is that the large law firm may perceive you doing that work because you're working solely because you have to. They may perceive that you don't like working with other attorneys. They may think that, you'll come to the large law firm and decide you don't like it again if you were in a large law firm, or don't like it and go back and maybe take the firm's clients. They'll also have issues about, your potential skills. And, so it's very rare that solo practitioners are able to go back to large law firms. And it's just something that you need to understand. So, certainly you can go back to work in a large law firm, and I've seen it happen countless times. So it's not saying it doesn't happen, but it's very, very difficult. And the other thing is that large law firms are going to want you to have business, and so very few solo practitioners are able to charge the same amounts that large law firms charge, and that work is not going to be portable for most large law firms. And then finally, and this is not something that everyone wants to hear, but solo practitioners generally make a lot less money than large law firm attorneys. And most, in my experience, most solo practitioners spend a lot of their time trying to negotiate, how much money they're going to get paid, how soon they're going to get paid for whatever they're doing, rather than doing the work. So, I've seen solo practitioners where they've negotiated for 2 hours on the phone about, attending a hearing for a client. Drive a couple hours to pick up cash, before attending a 15-minute hearing. And then, spending another hour negotiating to, they just spend a lot of time negotiating, trying to get paid, and, going to pick up money and stuff. It's just, it's often just about, negotiating to get paid to do something very simple that the client many times could do on their own. I mean, it's just, and this is the work of a lot of them, honestly. I mean, there's certainly not all of them, but that's a lot of them. And because they spend so much time chasing down clients who will pay them and waiting to get paid, it can be very difficult to make money, because if you don't have large clients, like, what I like to call waterfalls of money, just continually, pushing money your way for work, you're often going to spend more of your time trying to get paid. And so it's just very, very difficult if you're solo to get paid, and that's something to understand. And, having a large law firm behind you helps you get paid and makes things much easier. Okay, so in conclusion, you can definitely succeed by owning your own law firm. The most important thing, if you are going to start a law firm, that I'd recommend is you're always going to need a source of work. So you're going to need to have someone that's going to be able to give you work, and you're always going to need work coming in. And that may mean advertising, it may mean a lot of networking. I don't know, but it's going to be something. And most solos fail, and just like most businesses, because they don't have enough people buying what they're selling. And you need to have the right temperament. I mean, you need to be able to, hustle and make sure you have, all of the skills that are necessary. I'm going to take a quick break, and then I will come back and take some questions. Thanks.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we started with the questions. The first question is, I've been running my own law firm in the Midwest for 20 years. I enjoy helping people with their problems. Let's see here. Do you have any? Sorry, give me 1 second. Sorry, 1 second. I'm sorry. I've been running my own law firm in the Midwest for 20 years. I enjoy helping people with their problems, but I'm ready for a change. Is there anything you can suggest to help me? Well, what I would suggest is if you have your own law firm, and and you're looking for a change, there's lots of things you can do. I mean, one of the things that I always recommend doing is, if you can, I would really recommend trying to, maybe do different types of practice areas than you're doing. Or an additional thing would be to try to bring on more people to help you in another type of practice area. So a lot of times when people aren't happy with their own practice area, with their own firm, one thing that can make a big difference is just being able to do different types of work and thinking about, what would you do differently opening your own practice based on what you know now than you may have done in the past. Okay, let's see here. And there's several questions here, and since this has kind of gone long today, I do have to jump on another call in a little bit, but I will get through these. I'm a Yale law grad with a year of big firm experience. I left the practice of law to pursue other interests that did not work out. What are my best chances of re-entering the practice? I have a master's degree in both psychology and information systems, but little in the way of employment history. What do you suggest? Well, if you have 1 year of big law firm experience, I do think, especially coming from Yale Law School, that it's not going to be too difficult for you to get back into a law firm. I think that there's plenty of people that are likely to be interested in hiring you with that type of experience. So I would not be that concerned about that. It depends on what you're interested in doing. I don't know that your master's degrees are anything that matters that much to what you're trying to do. I would recommend trying to go back to a law firm. It doesn't have to be a large law firm, and I also don't know what you left to do. If you left to do something that is related to your job, meaning practicing law, or something that wasn't. If you did leave to do something unrelated to practicing law, I'd ask yourself why you did that, because you probably, were interested in something else for a reason and didn't like practicing law for a reason. So maybe, you'd be happier in a different type of legal environment. Maybe you'd be happy with the government. I don't know, but you should be very careful about going back, I think, to a law firm if you're likely to be unhappy again. You should think about, what is it that you do that you're most interested in. One of the things that's interesting about, Yale Law School and a lot of very good law schools is people tend to get into those schools by performing very, very well academically. And so, if you're performing well academically to get in there, or you have other outside interests, many times, you can, do other things, and those may be related to academics. A lot of times, people from Yale go into academics because they're so good in academics. So you should go, into something where you feel like you're going to get the most positive response from what you're doing. What I will say is, many times people have to learn how to be good students. So you also have to learn to be a good attorney, and so you need to give yourself more time to try to learn how to do that as well. I think a lot of people, practicing law is so much different than being in school, and so a lot of people give up very, very easily, and they don't realize that, the same thing that makes you good at practicing law, makes you good, can make you, good in the long run. I mean, I had an experience that was kind of interesting. I was in, when I was in 8th grade, I failed Algebra 1 and didn't do very well at it at all. And then when I was in, 9th grade, I took Algebra 2, and I had a very difficult time, getting even a B minus. But I stuck with math, and I did very, very well. And I'm sorry, when I was in 9th grade, I took Algebra 1 and had a hard time and got a B minus. But I stuck with it, and and then when I got to college, I was taking like all these calculus classes and higher level things, and was doing very, very well at them. So, you can do well if you commit to something. Okay, can you speak to the problems and opportunities that long-term government lawyers face in transitioning into the private sector, but for obvious reasons don't have a book of business? Can an attorney like this open their own practice? Yes, government attorneys can open their own practice. The only difference I would say about opening your own practice is if you do open your own practice, you do need to start thinking like a business person. And what that means is you need to learn how are you going to get the work, how are you going to, how are you going to manage your time, and, are you hungry enough to do that? So, many times government attorneys, I worked one summer in the Justice Department, and I couldn't believe it. I mean, at 5 o'clock every day, and there was hardly a soul in the entire building. And, so you just need to get very hungry if you're going to try to transition from the government to private practice. The other thing I would ask you is, if you want to open your own, practice, why do you want to do that? What is it that you offer? You need to have some sort of, unique benefit that you offer the market, in order to open your own practice effectively. Let's see here. Hello, Harrison. I've been a prosecutor for decades. My first with the state, now the federal. I want to transition into either in-house labor and employment position or a solo practice focused on labor and employment. Which route is likely to provide a happier career? I care about work-life balance, but don't mind putting in long hours to build a business from the ground up. Sorry, I'm just reading this. Okay. Well, I think if you do want to do labor and employment, there's a couple of different things. If you were a prosecutor, you're probably going to do much better off doing plaintiffs-related work in employment, which is bringing lawsuits and against employers and so forth. And those types of clients are fairly easy to attract. I know of a lot of law firms that have started, out as doing employment defense, which that tends to be sort of a commodity, and those cases aren't that difficult to bring in, and from small companies, and then that may be also something that you want to do. If you are interested, in in-house and a solo, your business, your interest in business and bringing in business and distinguishing yourself and so forth has to be much greater than actually doing the work, and that's something that I would say, that all solo practitioners should think very closely about, because, if you're considering, what interests you more, bringing in the work and going out and hustling and getting work, or, doing the work. And to be a successful solo, you have to actually be very interested
and bringing in the work, and that's a very important thing. Okay, let's see. I'm asking this question on behalf of my son. He is graduating from law school this spring and is having a difficult time finding employment. The job market is very weak for new attorneys. Can you recommend steps new attorneys should take in today's legal employment climate? He is, if he is unable to find a law firm job, is it advisable to start his own law practice? My son would eventually like to work in a law firm, so it would be difficult to work at one. So would it be difficult to work when his first job is working for himself? Yes, I do not advise people to start a solo practice right out of law school. I think that in order to learn any practice area, you need to spend, probably 3 to 5 years working for someone else and getting a sense of how they operate and how they do work. That's very important. And because you need to learn good habits, I recommend, the larger the law firm you work in, typically the better work habits you'll get, but at the same time, you may not learn a lot about business development, so you need to kind of think about that. I think that anybody that wants a job can get a job. I mean, there are so many law firms in every city. It's just, in most cities, in large cities, it's ridiculous. And not only that, there's attorneys all over that need help. I mean, everybody needs help that's an attorney. I mean, the question is how much are they willing to pay for it, and but most attorneys could always use help. So, and most law firms could use help. And so if you're having a difficult time finding a job, you need to look very, very hard and talk to as many people as you possibly can. What that means is it means applying to firms that may not necessarily have openings, and just getting yourself out there to the maximum extent possible. I mean, that's just how it works. You just need to, really market yourself, and that's what your son needs to do. It doesn't matter where your son went to law school. It doesn't matter how well he did in law school. There's going to be people out there that will employ him. I recommend getting experience in a law firm first, because it's much more difficult to go back to a law firm if you're not working in a law firm, or if you've never worked in a law firm, than it is to start in a law firm. But there's so many law firms out there. I don't see any reason why he can't get a job. I mean, there's tons and tons and tons of them. You just need to find something to get the best thing you can. Okay, the next question is, I would like to set up a solo practice, and I am prepared to do all the work required to generate business. Can you recommend a good resource for the basics of building a niche, torts, or employment law? The best resource to build a niche would be to work for another attorney first, and to go and talk to other attorneys that are doing that practice area. And it doesn't have to be in your city; it could be in other markets. But most attorneys that are doing something and have an existing practice will probably be happy to talk to you. So I'd recommend doing informational interviews with people because they can teach you in a few minutes what could take you years to learn on your own if you're not afraid to ask for help. And believe it or not, senior attorneys are often very interested in helping, junior attorneys, with, working on, with answering questions and so forth, and that can help you. So that's one thing that I would recommend. Other resources, I mean, there's books about starting law firms out there. There's lots of articles about starting law firms. There's coaching services for people with small law firms to help them expand their practices. There's courses about different practice areas you can start, and there's all sorts of different resources that you potentially could rely upon out there to help you. Now, I don't know which ones of those are good and which ones are bad, because there's a lot of them. But that's what I would recommend. And in terms of choosing your practice area, you have to understand what it is and what your income requirements are. So if your requirement is to get paid money fast, then you may want to have something that's not contingency related. So if you were to do torts, that would be personal injury, I'm assuming, and that would also be something that would be useful. So and that would can take a while to get paid. So you just have to be careful about that. Okay. Let's see. When running a solo practice, what percentage of my time should I dedicate to generating business, and what percentage should be used for actually doing the work? Well, that's a good question. So the best people in business will typically set aside, time to do different types of to do work each week. So they will, make sure that they're, doing, work on a consistent basis. So they will, do. They'll have time when they're working, and then they'll have time to generate business. You need to build in business development in any firm. Every attorney, regardless of whether you're working for a solo practice or on your own, should have business development built into your practice. So that means, taking potential clients out to eat, meeting with people, consistently, working that into whatever you do. And that's something that the best attorneys do at the largest firms and also the smallest firms. That means, going and being part of different community groups and things where you can get work. It means, writing ads, sending cards, doing, working on your website. You need to have business development needs to be an important part of whatever you're doing. And and you just need to make sure that it's consistent. And the thing is if you stop doing business development, then the work stops. And so it's the only the example that I would give you is like when you're studying for an exam. If you're studying for an exam and you don't have and you haven't prepared for the exam, then that's a problem. So and I always, this dream that all these students seem to have, where you wake up in the middle of the night and you realize you're rolling in a course and your test is in 2 days. Well, business development is like that. I mean, you have to be constantly going to class, you have to constantly be doing the readings or the homework, and you have to constantly keep up with it. It's just not something you can ignore. And attorneys that ignore it do so at their own peril. And it's just very, very important to be on top of it. Okay. And so I would say, as much percentage as you possibly can, especially if you're starting out. Attorneys that are starting out, you need to spend a lot of time in business development. Okay, with the current pandemic situation, do you see a need for remote-only law firms? I am licensed in a state different from where I live, and I am thinking about returning the practice law for several years away. I could open a practice that takes clients from a state where I'm licensed, but that would have to get all of my business online, take meetings over Zoom. Can you see a business model like this working? What are the potential downsides? Yes, I mean, it depends on your practice area. So there are different practice areas. Where there are many practice areas where you don't ever need to meet with clients. I was talking to a family law attorney the other day that hardly ever meets their clients and has done cases from start to finish without ever meeting clients. So it just all depends on your practice area. I mean, patent attorneys may not need to meet their clients. I would think something like family law, you would need to meet clients. I would think in litigation, any type of litigation where you're taking depositions and so forth, you would need to meet clients. But I do think remote only is perfectly possible for many practice areas, especially transactional ones. If you're marking up real estate contracts or that sort of thing, or tax issues, you can do everything remote. But it's kind of up to you. But I don't see any issues with that, and I know tons of attorneys that have worked remotely during the pandemic. Exclusively remotely. Okay, what are some ways I can differentiate my solo practice from the others offering similar services at a similar price point? Is it all done to marketing, or can I differentiate myself somehow with the way I provide my services? Yeah, so businesses, this is why I would recommend, reading things about branding and marketing. There's a good book by Trout and Reese called The 22 Immutable Laws of Marketing or Branding or something. There's all sorts of marketing books out there that you can read. But, businesses can differentiate themselves based on results. So they can say, we win 99% of the time. They can differentiate themselves based on customer service. They can differentiate themselves based on being the lowest cost. They can differentiate themselves being the biggest. They can differentiate themselves based on having the best qualified attorneys. They can differentiate themselves based on being, local to the market. There's just all sorts of ways that, a business can differentiate itself. So, what I would recommend is, you think about, there's an article on harrisonbarnes.com called discovering your unique selling proposition or USP. And so every business needs to stand for something. It needs to stand for, what makes it better than other businesses and what makes it special. And so that's something that you should, investigate to the extent you can, and figure out what makes you different. I mean, what make you different may be, your practice area, like that you're, or you have this special training, or you have, if you're a healthcare attorney, that you worked in the healthcare industry before becoming an attorney, or you're a doctor and you're also an attorney. I mean, there's all sorts of ways to differentiate yourself, but
what I do know is with service providers, most people want to say that their service provider is the best, and they want to have reasons that they think their service provider is great, and and that sort of thing. So, you need to make sure that whatever you're doing, that you look like the best option. Okay, so let's see. And this is the last question I'm going to take. This has been a long time. And if anybody has any other questions, what I will do is I will also answer them next week as well. In our call, because this has been over almost a couple hours. And then I will make sure I answer them next week too. So the last question is, I had a solo practice for several years and I'm now trying to get back into a law firm. Should I emphasize the fact that I was independent and able to generate a lot of business for myself, and I can do that for the firm, or should I downplay the fact that I was in my own business because it's going to make me look like a bad cultural fit? No, I think you need to talk about the fact that you had a business. I mean, that's great. I mean, law firms like that. Law firms hire solos all the time if they have a good amount of business. Law firms love business, and if you were able to do that on your own without any support, I think that shows that you can definitely do it. With your own law firm. So I think that's a great point. So that should hopefully help you. And but I don't know. The final thing you said was a bad cultural fit. I don't think that it makes you look like a bad cultural fit that you had your own law firm. I think that it makes you look like a bad cultural fit if it seems like that's all you want is to have your own law firm, but not if you had your own law firm. Okay, well, thank you. I'm sorry this was such a long presentation today. I mean, I hope it helped. And I will also take more questions next week, but this is, typically I answer questions as long as I have, and there are some more here, but I have a record of all the questions pending, and I will answer them next week as well. Thank you.